Hi guys, my name is Caitlin, but everyone calls me KK, and I just want to welcome you guys to my first ever booktube video. I am so excited to be joining the booktube community, and I just thought that today we would go through the newbie book tag questions so you could get to know me a little bit. And so yeah, let's get started. The first question is, why are you joining booktube, or why are you starting your channel? I'm starting booktube because I love talking about books, and I love talking to anyone else who loves talking about books, and I could just do it all day long. And so I am joining booktube so that I can have a community of people to talk about books with and change recommendations with, and also to meet some new people and just be around people who love books as much as I do. The second question is, what fun or unique thing are you going to bring to YouTube? There are so many amazing and creative people that are on booktube. It's really hard to think about the fact that I might be bringing something fun and new, unique to the booktube community. They're all just so amazing already, but I think the main thing that's different about me is that I love fiction and I could just live in those worlds all the time, but I also really like nonfiction. So I'm going to be talking about both fiction and nonfiction in this channel. The third question is, what are you most excited about with starting your channel? And I would definitely have to say the most exciting thing for me is the community. Like I mentioned earlier, I love talking to other people about books, especially other people who really love books and trading recommendations. So that's definitely a really exciting thing for me. But I'm also really excited to show people my book hauls and the new things that I'm reading recently, and getting their thoughts and comments on those books, and just kind of sharing excitement about the things that we're learning and reading. So the fourth question is, why do you love reading? And I know that I love reading for the same reason that a lot of people really love reading, and that's that I love being submerged into other worlds and meeting the characters and listening to their stories, and just being completely taken away from this place that you are right now, sitting on your couch or in a coffee shop or wherever you are, and being completely transported into a whole different world with a whole new set of stories and a whole different set of parameters of how life works. The other thing that I really love about books is that you get to gain this whole new perspective and insight on how the world works, even in genres like fantasy or romance, where you wouldn't necessarily think that you're learning about the world around you. You really are. And in those genres, you can learn about yourself and how you work, how you function, things that may be affecting you. But even more importantly, you can also learn what it's like to be somebody else and what someone else's thought process might look like and what they might feel like. So then you can better connect with others and empathize with others. And I just think that that is so cool that books can bring us together in that way. So the next question is, what got you into reading again? And although I have been reading for my adult life more intensely, I wouldn't necessarily think that I got into reading again. I have been a reader since I learned how to read, starting out with books like Boxcar Children and the Chronicles of Narnia. Just took me into these mysteries and into a whole nother world where you could live with centaurs and all these other amazing creatures. And then when I got older, I got really into the Lord of the Rings, and I got into Twilight, and I got into City of Ember, books that took you into a world that was completely different than your own. Question 6 is, what are your top 3 favorite genres? And I definitely have to say my favorite genre by far is fantasy. I am a fantasy girly through and through, and I just love how different each world is and how complex each world is. And when you go into the story, it's so robust and filled out, and you have to learn how it works and what kind of creatures are in that world, and if there's magic system in the world. And I just love how complex those are and how full it makes the story feel. And my second favorite genre would have to be nonfiction. I love nonfiction because you can learn so much about anything. I read anything from memoirs to self-help to books about space and different science topics to books about Disney World and how it works. So anything that I can learn something about how a different part of life that I'm used to works, I'm definitely going to be reading. And then my third favorite genre is general fiction. And I love general fiction because the stories are so unique. You never know what you're going to get into. You never know if it's going to be something that's super heartwarming or something that just completely destroys your world and your emotions and you have to recover from. I just love that every time you read a general fiction book, it's just completely unique experience to every other book that you've read. So definitely fantasy, nonfiction, and general fiction are my top 3 favorite genres. Question 7 is, what question would you want to ask your favorite booktubers? And the number 1 question is definitely, how do you find the time to read all these books and film all these videos? And I know that editing takes a long time too. So definitely, where do you find the time? But beyond that, I would also really like to ask them what editing software they use and how they learn to edit videos, how they learn to film and do different camera angles and things like that. So yeah, I would definitely want to ask them those questions. So question 9 is, when did you start reading? And like I mentioned before, I've definitely been a reader ever since I learned how to read. I've never stopped. And I think that being a more introverted person definitely fostered my love for reading because I could use books as a little barrier or a safety net when I started to feel a little bit socially exhausted or depleted or like I needed a little bit of space. So from a young age, I started taking a book with me everywhere I went to kind of act like a shield. Like when I was ready to have a little break, I would just sit down with my book and just kind of like disconnect for a few minutes until I was recharged and ready to go. The next question is, where do you read? And I read everywhere, anywhere and everywhere. Like I said before, I always have a book with me in case there's some downtime or I'm in a situation where I'm feeling a little bit socially drained. I can just whip out my book and start reading. But at home, I read on the couch, I read in bed, I listen to audiobooks when I'm walking my dog. I just read absolutely anywhere and everywhere that I have a chance to. Question 11 is, what kind of books that you like to read? And like I mentioned earlier, I really love fantasy, nonfiction, and general fiction. But on an even deeper level, I find that I love books that are character driven. And although I feel like plot is important, if I'm not connected to the characters, then I'm not going to like the book. If I think the characters are just okay, then I'm going to think the book is just okay. If I can connect with the characters right at the heart, then I am just in love with the book. And you know that even if the plot was a little shaky at times, that I'm going to rate it highly because I loved the characters in it. The last question is, what does your book collection look like? And you can see part of it behind me, and most of my books are on this shelf. I have them split into shelves of either fiction or nonfiction. So on this shelf, I have 3 nonfiction shelves and 2 fiction shelves. And then under my TV cabinet is a bookshelf as well. In that shelf, under my TV, I have all of my Tolkien books, my C.S. Lewis books, as well as a lot of classics. And then on the sides of those bookshelves, I have series or stacks of books that are by a specific author. I also have a nonfiction shelf that is in my guest room, and that is mostly memoirs, textbooks, sciencey books, things like that. And the last place that I keep books is actually my favorite bookshelf that I have, and that is the floating shelves above my computer screen in my office area. And those shelves are used for either books that I thought were really pretty or books that I absolutely loved, and so I felt like they needed to be on display. Those are all the questions that I have. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you want to stick around so we can talk about books together, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time.